Hi everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Freelancers Tea Break. This is going to be a slightly longer one because today is a podcast episode that I'm recording on my birthday, because it's 10 whole years, an entire decade, since I made the jump to go freelance. So to give you some context, 10 years ago, I was working in an HR department in a job I didn't enjoy, I wasn't particularly great at, but worse still, the environment was incredibly toxic. There was a lot of bullying going on, and I just felt so low every single day. And I was really struggling in that job, and I decided to take a few days off for my birthday, and then I came back and I just decided to hand my notice in. No idea what I was going to do next, and that is not something, by the way, that I recommend. I recommend people take the time to save up some money first, but I also know what I'm like, and I need sometimes a little bit of fear to spur me on. I didn't know I was going to go freelance. In fact, at that time, I don't think I even knew what freelancing was. I ended up applying for a couple of internships with blogs that I'd followed since I was at university. So some of the agri-media blogs, Catwalk Queen and Chihuahua and The Bag Lady, some of you might remember them. So I applied for those, and I worked for a little bit for Honda, who are now Treatwell. And through those internships, I landed my very first freelance job as an editorial assistant to Miramus, which was Katie Lee's company, and everything went from there. And that's 10 years ago, and one of the best things I've ever done, because I realise I've got a family, so I can't say the best thing, but from a career point of view and a health and wellness point of view, easily one of the best things I've ever done. So I thought I'd share with you 10 things I've learnt in 10 years of freelancing. So I'm not going to go in any particular order here. The first one is you'll never stop learning, and actually you'll never want to stop learning. I was not a naturally academic child. Even at university, I really didn't enjoy learning. And then I went freelance, and I had power and control back over my career again, and discovered that actually I love learning as long as I'm in control of what I'm learning. I love learning new processes, new tools, new ways to do things. I love learning about all the new ways to run my business. It's exciting. I love that there's never a never-ending opportunity to educate myself. So you'll never stop learning as a freelancer. Number 2, you can do far more than you give yourself credit for. I'm not saying here you're doing a 12-hour day, you should be doing a 14-hour day. No, it's not that. What I mean is your potential is so much bigger than you realise. When I worked in that HR job, I had zero confidence in myself. My self-esteem was in the toilet. It wasn't great. And being freelance made me realise that actually my own self-belief was the only thing holding me back. And I could have the career I wanted, or the freelance business I wanted, if I just believed in myself and put in the work. But the belief was the most important bit, because if I didn't believe in myself, it was very hard to follow the actions that I needed to do. So you can do so much more than you believe is possible, perhaps when you just start freelancing. Okay, my third one, very practical. For the love of God, save for your tax bill. I didn't do it in the first year. I ended up putting on a credit card, and that took about 2 or 3 years for me to actually clear, because I was saving still for my tax bill. Don't do it. Put away 30%, 25% if you're really tight for money, but 30% gives you some wiggle room. Please save for your tax bill. If there's one thing I can teach new freelancers, it's that. Number 4, stop comparing to other people. Your only competition is yourself. So I cannot remember exactly what the phrasing is, but it's something like, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or someone else's end. There is no point comparing yourself to other people, because they're not in the exact same circumstances as you. So don't compare yourself because they're more successful, or they're launching and you've been waiting to launch something for a while, or anything like that. Stop comparing with other people, because it's never a good idea, and Instagram is kind of a big thing for this. But compare yourself to how you're doing, say 6 months ago. So to think back where you were 6 months ago and everything you've achieved since then. That will make you feel great. That's empowering. Comparing yourself to other people when you don't know their exact circumstances is just not healthy. Okay, number 5, self-care is a non-negotiable. And I don't mean the kind of not cheesy, but the kind of cliche self-care that we're being sold by companies now with bath bombs and spa days and all these kind of things and expensive products that you have to buy. Self-care can be as simple as making sure that you're eating the right stuff that powers you in the best possible way. So don't live on caffeine and chocolate. I love caffeine and chocolate, but don't live on it because you're not going to produce your best results. Getting enough sleep if you can. Trying to get out and get some exercise, or even something as simple as when it's a nice day, going outside and getting some vitamin D, and also getting your vitamins generally. That really helps as well. For me, actually, one of the best bits of self-care is actually doing the housework, not in freelancing time, but making sure the area I'm surrounded with is relatively tidy and clean. It makes such a difference to how I feel. Sometimes self-care can be a bit boring, but it's so important because you are your business's biggest resource. Without you, you can't run your freelance business, obviously. So it's so important that you look after yourself. The next thing, I think we're at number 6, is the key to consistent work is little and often tasks. So I used to come to the end of a contract and then panic pitch and be reaching out to everybody and trying to find work that way, and it was very stressful, and often doing that means you often have to wait a couple of months for a project to actually start. So what I suggest to all freelancers is to make pitching a habit. So do a small amount every week, and if you know you've got a quiet period coming up, maybe even every day. And that could be little things like posting what you offer on LinkedIn, on Instagram. It could be updating your social media profiles. It could be sharing your special offers in your newsletter, or doing a guest post for someone else, or becoming a podcast guest on someone's podcast. There are lots of different things that you can do, but the key is to do little and often rather than a big panic. So, number 7, don't count the money until it's in your account. This happens so often. I've done it, a lot of freelancers I've done it where you've signed on a great new client, you kind of almost mentally spend the money, and then you discover that they are either a late payer or even worse, a non-payer. But the late payers are the worst because you know they're going to pay at some point, but they take so long to do it. So don't count that money, and don't even consider that money yours until it's already in your account. Number 8, growth comes from pushing outside your comfort zone. I'm a big fan of the comfort zone, and I spend probably about 70% of my time in my comfort zone, doing all the things that I enjoy, and it's a great place to be. And there are times when I've spent 100%. After I had my son, I needed to be in the comfort zone all the time because stretching outside that just wasn't possible at the time. But growth comes from pushing yourself outside that comfort zone, and I'm not talking about doing anything crazy, but maybe volunteering to do a speaking gig with a local networking group, or pitching or sharing what you do on your actual Facebook profile rather than in your page. There's lots of different things, but pushing yourself outside that comfort zone is where the real growth happens. Number 9 is trust your gut. Every time I've gone against my gut as a freelancer, it's backfired, and it takes time to be able to understand when it's your gut and when it's just nerves about something new, but generally you will know if the idea of that project not happening makes you feel relieved and happy. That's your gut telling you that it's not right for you. So trust your gut. And finally, surround yourself with awesome freelancers. So one of the reasons I started my Facebook group is because I wanted to have a place where all the freelancers that I knew would have a great supportive environment to chat to, kind of like an office water cooler kind of idea. And it's turned into something absolutely beautiful. I love that Facebook group because everybody is so friendly, so supportive, and so kind. It's doesn't have any of the kind of office politics of working in an office, which is always great. But having those freelancers around you makes you feel empowered, makes you feel stronger and more confident. They're there when you need to be built up. They're there when you need kind of a, oh, I'm sorry to hear you've dealt with this crap client, I've had that before moments. It's so important that you have a support structure out there of other freelancers who get it. And most of the freelancers I know aren't competitive with each other as well. We all know that there's enough custom to go around, and quite often are happy to refer work to other people and things like that. So it's not kind of a competitive environment. It's all about working together. Essentially, working at home on your own doesn't mean that you have to work alone. So those are 10 things I've learned in the last 10 years. They're not all the things, obviously, but I think they're the things that most freelancers discover, that they're stronger than they ever thought possible, mentally. I don't mean physically. I mean, maybe some of them are physically stronger because they're able to go to the gym during off-peak hours, but generally stronger mentally, that they're capable of far more than they ever thought possible, but also that it's possible to have a freelance career and still look after yourself and your self-care, and your mental health as well. I'd love to know what you've learned. Do jump over into the Facebook group, the Freelance Lifestylers. Again, the link is in the comments or the bio bit below. I'd love to know what your lessons were. I'm going to start a thread, actually. I've just realised. I'm going to start a thread on this to see what everybody's learned. So that's it for this week. Next week I'll be back with another episode.